Okay. Okay, this is the City of Maplewood Community Design Review Board for October 15th, 2024. We'll call to order, starting with roll call. I am Tom Osmond, present.
Anand Shankar, present.
Amanda Reinert, present.
Bill Kempe, present.
Nick?
And Chair, just for the record, I'd point out Mr. Kempe is participating in this meeting remotely.
Great. Next order, approval of agenda. Staff, any additions to the agenda?
Chair and board, staff does not have any amendments to the agenda as presented.
Do we have a second? Do we go the second? Okay, second to approve the agenda?
I'll make a second.
We need a motion first.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, that's all right.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we will do a roll call vote, so Tom Osmond, approve? Yay? We have to do roll call. Every vote today we have to do roll call because Bill's on, so.
So I can help out with this. Board member Shankar,
Agree?
board member Reinhardt,
Agree.
board member Kempe.
Agree.
So for the record, 4 ayes, 0 nays.
Next item, approval of minutes from the July 16th, 2024 meeting. Staff, any
Chair and board, staff does not have any amendments to the minutes as presented.
board? We will start the roll call vote, so motion.
I'm sorry, point of order. We'll need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve the, well, actually, I can't. Maybe I can because I was, probably was not there at that meeting.
I will motion to approve the meeting minutes from July 16th, 2024.
I'll second.
And then Commissioner Shankar,
I should really abstain because I was not there.
board member Reinhardt,
Yay.
Yes.
board member Kempe.
Well, I don't know if I should abstain or not, but I don't think there's anything wrong with me approving it. So I will approve.
All right, and board member Osmond.
Yay.
All right, that has been approved.
Next item, new business. Staff.
Thank you, Chair and Board. If we could go to the overhead, I have a handful of slides to walk through our first item, which is design review and parking waiver for a multifamily residential project proposed at 2615 Maplewood Drive. This is a project that would be a 72-unit apartment building on vacant land just adjacent to the intersection of Maplewood Drive and County Road C. You can see the site location on the map to the right on the slide. It's just under 9 acres in the project area. And to move forward, the project would need approval for design review and a parking waiver. The current controls of the property, the future land use from the comprehensive plan guides it as medium-density residential and is zoned R3 multiple dwelling. And that this project does meet both of those requirements. It meets the density requirements of the comprehensive plan and the zoning for uses for this site. As mentioned, the site is currently vacant. Previous to this project, there have been no uses that have been proposed in recent history. And the proposed use is a permitted, the proposed use is a permitted use. And I just want to point out on that one, this isn't the first time this project has been before the board. Originally came in 2020, and design review approvals are good for 2 years. So then in September of 2022, the applicant brought it back again for approval, which was granted. Both those scenarios did not require any city council review. So it started and ended with the Community Design Review Board for its review. What's different in 2024, the project essentially is the same. It's still 3 stories, still 72 units. The design of the building is the same. What they are asking for, the applicant, is a parking waiver, which we'll talk about on the next slide. If there's questions about what's occurred with market conditions, construction prices, those kind of elements, the applicant is here and can speak more to those specific questions. Now, looking at the parking waiver, for a 72-unit building, 144 parking spaces are required. The project, again, in the last 2 cycles that this has been through the city process, this requirement was being met. So there wasn't anything to be discussed necessarily on a parking, and again, that kept it off the city council's slate. The applicant is now, as they're looking to move forward with this project to start next spring, is asking the city to consider the 31 studio units within the building and reduce the parking requirements for those 31 units from 2 spaces per unit to 1. Again, the city requires 2 spaces per each unit, and the applicant is looking for that waiver to go from just 1 space for those 31 units. The rest of the project would still maintain the 2 space per unit requirement. And as part of what the applicant is proposing, he's looking at 16 proof of parking spaces to the north. So if you look at the site plan on the right-hand side of this slide, you see those red lines. Those are indication of 16 spaces that the city could require implementation if there's a parking shortage. Now, I should probably back up and talk about where these 31 spaces would come from in terms of reduction. Those 16 to the north, that's on the previous approved site plan from 2020, and 2022. The applicant is seeking to reduce the amount of surface spaces in that area. That provides green space, a little bit more buffer to the neighbors to the north, opportunity to put a stormwater treatment into the west. And then the remaining spaces, 15 or so, are actually underground spaces. And previously, the applicant was going to excavate an area larger than the footprint of the building itself to add those additional 15 spaces. Now, in order to get the costs in a situation where the applicant is able to implement the project and also reduce the amount of grading that occurs on site. And we'll talk. You'll see this on the following slide. There is a series of wetlands to the west. Reducing the amount of underground spaces actually reduces the amount of grading that would occur near a wetland buffer area. So that provides more of a buffer than would be provided otherwise. So the underground parking footprint would now be limited to the building footprint itself. And so the entire footprint of the building would have still underground parking, but this waiver would allow the developer not to excavate from an area larger than that. And then on the bottom of the slide, you can, and this was in your staff report as well, you can see a breakdown again where the 31 studio units would be allocated that 1 space, and the remaining 41 units would have the 2 per unit as ordinance would require. Looking, and again, from a site plan standpoint, other than the parking change, everything is the same from 2 years and 4 years ago. The building is to be set back 30 feet from the street, 100 feet from the north property line. Those requirements continue to be met. The parking lot setback is at least 15 feet from the street, 20 feet from the north property line, again, continued to be met. There will be 3 access drives from Maplewood Drive. You can see the one drive to the north of the building, and that actually leads to the underground garage as well. And then 2 access drives to the south of the building for that surface lot. A survey, and this is with any construction project, but we did want to call it out because I know there had been some neighborhood comments over the years on this. A survey signed by a licensed surveyor, licensed in the state of Minnesota, is required to be submitted with any building permit, and that certifies the property lines for the city to have confidence in the projects being built where it's supposed to be built. And so again, that's licensed surveyor would submit that, and that is a requirement of the conditions of approval. This talks about some of the environmental aspects on the site. As you can see on the upper right-hand photo, those green polygons are wetlands, and the ordinance does require a 50-foot minimum and with a 75-foot average buffer to those wetlands. And this project, it meets those requirements. And so you can see while the site is somewhat large, a lot of it is being maintained as open space, and the building itself is being concentrated on the east side of the site. The majority of the project area is also in the Shoreline Overlay District for Coleman Lake, which has a 30% impervious surface maximum. And actually with the reduction of the 31 spaces, it also has a reduction of 9,300 square feet of impervious surface. So the impervious surface area for this project actually goes from 14% to down to 12% if the parking waiver is ultimately granted. So it improves those conditions in terms of impervious surface. And as you can see, well is below the 30% threshold. The building itself proposed to be just under 35 feet from front grade of the building, the side that faces Maplewood Drive, to the top of the parapet. And the exterior of the building would be comprised of brick, stone, metal panel, and a cement siding with a flat roof. If there's specific questions on the design, also the applicant is here to answer those kind of questions. Again, the design that has been previously approved is not being proposed to change. And all rooftop equipment would be required to be screened on all sides. 35 of the 143 significant trees are being removed. 25 new trees are being planted. Because the large majority of the site is being preserved, that does not call out tree replacement for this development other than a one-to-one basis. So as part of the submittal process for a building permit, the applicant would be required to submit a new tree preservation plan, just again, because some of those plants have now dated for a few years. And so the city is going to require a new tree plan that would make sure that any hazardous trees, like ash trees, are being addressed, any currently dead trees are being removed, and then there's a couple significant trees that the developer has already committed to preserving, and their plans show that, but we want to make sure on the next iteration of plans that remains the case. And then the ordinance requires screening to be installed when light from automobile headlights and other sources would be directed into residential windows. Of course, to the north, you have the single-family homes, so that's sensitivity. That's been a requirement of condition of approval this entire time, that the applicant would submit screening done with a combination of natural landscaping that's in place year-round and fencing. And so the developer's well aware of this and has been working on that requirement. Notifications sent to property owners within 350 feet. Similar notices sent out in 2020 and 2022. So even though this is coming back, for kind of a repeat review, we do continue to make sure that the neighborhood is aware of what is going on. And in terms of this meeting, project was supposed to be reviewed at the last meeting, so we sent notices for that meeting, and then we did send them again for this meeting. So again, the neighborhood is well aware of where we're at on the review process. So with that, and the conditions of approval found in the report, staff is recommending approval of this project. This is not a public hearing. If there are members of the public that want to speak to it, at the behest of the chairperson to allow that.
Questions from the board?
Michael, when we say one bedroom or two bedroom requires two stalls, is that for the residents, or does that take into account any visitor parking?
Chair and board, no, the city's parking code does not factor in quote-unquote visitor parking, so that is accounted for in that 2 per unit requirement. So all residential projects, multifamily residential projects would fall into that 2 per. And in the staff report, we did do a review of how this project would be reviewed in other cities, because parking ordinances run the gamut of what's required. And under the kind of the peer cities and neighboring cities that we do lots of ordinance comparisons to, parking requirements within those cities generally fell between 92 and 115 spaces. So again, 113 are being proposed here. So we do feel comfortable from a staff perspective that this project is being adequately parked.
So if a studio unit is only calling for one stall, you are comfortable, the city is comfortable that one would take care of both the resident as well as any visitors that come for the unit?
Correct, Chair and board, mainly because the other units aren't going to necessarily have 2 vehicles per unit anyway, and the developer can speak more on their experience in other projects, but this is we've had a handful of parking waiver requests for multifamily projects. We do think this one is different than ones that we've seen like in the Gladstone neighborhood. And again, just based on the bedroom mix that we're looking at, we do think this is a different standard. But yes, from a city staff perspective, we are comfortable with the parking mix.
Was there a allotted number of visitor spots in their proposal?
Chair and board, no, I don't believe on the site plan there's been any, this is designated visitor parking.
That's all I have for staff. I do request the chair, I know it's been a few years since we saw the design, even though it's been approved. I would like the applicant to go over the building materials and also talk about that screening which is required facing our building as well as the single family. What exactly are they planning to do with the screening?
Is the applicant present? If you could sign in and state your name for the record.
Yes, thank you. Matt Frisbee with Frisbee Companies. Been owner of the land here for 5 years now and been in front of you 2 different times. So I appreciate your patience with us because I know it's been a long 4 years, but there's a lot of reasons for what happened back in 2020. Of course, with COVID and stuff, and then lumber index went through the roof. So we thought we were being wise by holding up a little bit and waiting for that to come down. Of course, then the interest rates went up. So we got to a point to where we're feeling confident about moving ahead this next spring. This is one of the things we'd like to do to help the project a little bit more attainable. And also, too, the benefit to the neighbors to the north. You had mentioned the screening. We've had a chance to talk to the neighbors back then and in the interim, too. And this would allow us to get a little bit more of a buffer as we take those stalls away. And like Michael had mentioned, the future stalls are still there. They're dashed in the red. But that allows us to do more with some landscaping. Now with that screening, even from the original design, there's a partial retaining wall that's about 3 feet tall. So any headlights would be into that retaining wall. Then we were showing a fence on the top. One of the concerns from the neighbors from before was walking dogs. Are they dogs going to come into my yard to the north, and also just people wandering. So there's a fence, and then pretty extensive landscape with whether it's low shrubs, bushes, and also trees. So we talked about it those times. We're going to come back with those landscape plans and show that screening, meet with the neighbors again. The other part was the survey. We do have a certified survey map from a licensed surveyor, DMARC, and we'd present that again. We talked to the neighbors, actually talked to some of the neighbors just last month as we were preparing for last month's meeting, and about coming back out and surveying those stakes. Sometimes those stakes don't survive very long or they're buried in the weeds. So we'd find the irons again, put taller stakes, and just show again where the certified survey map comes around. So some of that has been put on hold a little bit as we've gotten our arms around the construction costs and our ability to go and break ground. So this allows for a little bit more pervious soil. And as you're familiar with the site, there's a pretty strong wetland in there and a wetland buffer. This reduction also allows us to, like Michael had mentioned, I'm kind of using your first name, sorry, Michael Martin, about reducing that impact to the wetland, allowing more green space against that area. So that's kind of a brief view of maybe overlapping on 1 or 2 of your questions, but I'm very open to any questions you might have.
What about the screening of the lights facing the units themselves?
Yeah, so the site lighting is, we'll have some in the parking lot, and there'll be a directional shoebox design where they're directly down. The goal is that if everyone has either a balcony or a patio or something, so the goal is not letting the lights come back into the apartment, but at the same time to the neighbors to the north, it's not washing onto their property either. So we do have a photometric site plan that shows that we're not crossing the property lines with any of our site lighting.
Okay. And briefly, the building materials.
Yes. Yeah, the building materials stay the same. So lots of brick, a lot of glass, and then the accents up high as it goes up to the 3rd floor is a cementitious siding. Sometimes, we call it a hardy siding or an LP siding. There's some different ways to phrase that. And then we have some metal panel in there. So some of our stairwells, our entrance has an architectural metal panel look to it. So all materials for longevity, low maintenance, and architecturally really pleasing. I think I do have some 3-dimensional. I think you had some 3-dimensional.
Michael, could you put the elevation back up?
It's kind of from a distance there, but that turned a little dark. I mean, it's truly not that dark of colors, but we try to have some warm colors in there, some of the black. One of the last times I was here, the rendering on the left-hand side of that courtyard, the lower level parking shows that as gray, that light gray. That was not the way it's supposed to be for the rendering. So one of the last architectural reviews that I was here for, we definitely told you that would match the materials and the look of the stories above. And that was one of the comments that came from either 2 years ago or back to 2020. So it was a rendering issue that didn't get updated. So.
No other questions?
Thank you.
Was there anyone from the public who wanted to speak on this project? Okay. No further discussion. Do you have the motion on the screen?
Chair and board, I don't have the condition or the actual motion there, but it is on page, just pull it up here, the first page of the report itself, page 11 of the overall packet, and that's a motion to approve a resolution for design review and a parking waiver for constructing a 72-unit multifamily housing building at 2615 Maplewood Drive. And do want to point out in attachment 1 of the report, which starts on page 17 of the overall packet, is the resolution itself, which then on the second page, page 18, the conditions 1 through 12 are included.
I had it up and I blew it up, so I gotta find the page here.
Sure.
You guys have it? I was pulling up maps and then my agenda flew away, so.
You need the meeting minutes.
Page 11 of the motion, should be the proposal.
So if there's other comments or questions on the project, this would be appropriate time for the board. Otherwise, if someone was interested in making a motion.
If there's any comments, we should make it after the motion is made?
If there's comments on the project or questions, now would be the time to do that. Otherwise, if there's not, the board would consider a
Well, the only
motion.
comment I would make is, I would move to approve the project, but I would want the proof of parking shown in the licensed surveyor plan, as well as make a note that that provision should be made in case future parking is necessary for the project.
And Chair and board, that's a condition that can be added to any motion that the board would like to consider.
I'll second Anant's motion.
Okay.
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve a resolution for design review and a parking waiver for constructing a 72-unit multi-family housing building at 2615, including Amat's resolution that the parking waiver will be part of the surveyor's,
Proof of parking.
parking will be part of the surveyor's report.
It should be shown on the surveyor's platted plan.
That'll be shown on the surveyor's, sorry,
Platted plan.
platted plan. Is there a second?
I second that.
There's a motion and a second, so the item goes to a vote, and we'll go Board Member Shankar,
Approve?
Board Member Reinhardt,
Approve.
Board Member Kempe,
Approve.
Board Member Osman.
Approve.
So unlike the other two times this project has gone to Community Design Review Board, this one will go to the City Council, and we are tentatively scheduled to have that go to the council on October 28th. And the City Council then will be responsible for deciding approval for both the parking waiver and the design review of the project.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Next item, comprehensive sign plan, St. Paul Rugby Club, 63 Sterling Street North.
Thank you, Chair and Board. As the chairperson mentioned, we're looking at a comprehensive sign plan request by the St. Paul Rugby Club. The Rugby Club currently leases the playing field at Afton Heights Park. As you can see on the right-hand side, You see the softball, baseball diamonds to the north, and then the rectangle field on the south side, that is the rugby field. If you've got a chance to go out there, you'll see the upright posts for the sport of rugby have specifically been put out there. The city's Park and Rec Commission has reviewed the club's past improvements, including those goal markers and then the bleachers with the cement pad. Those have been put in by the club with guidance from the city's Park and Rec Commission. As part of the city's Park and Rec Commission's work looking at Afton Heights Park, they've also in concept looked at the club's request for a sign, which is what brings us to this item tonight. So the club is requesting approval to install approximately 12-foot tall by 8-foot wide sign. And then just for context, the overall park is just under 18 acres in size. If you look at so you see the red polygon or the red rectangle, that's the boundaries of the park itself. And then the light blue oval is the approximate location of where the sign is proposed. And to move forward, again, we're looking at a comprehensive sign plan request. So the sign face itself would be 60 square feet in size. You see a rendering of the proposed sign. Like I said, the city's Park and Recreation Department, so the staff, supports this application. The applicant worked with engineering staff then to determine an acceptable location, making sure it doesn't interfere with other utilities or planned improvement projects to the park itself. Proposed to be located south of the rugby field and north of the main drive. The sign is designed with the St. Paul Rugby Club's logo at the heart of it, the center of the sign, but it would also allow for 2 sponsorship areas and 4 associated club areas. The applicant can speak more to what that means, but also just note that the city's Park and Rec Department has reviewed that aspect of it and is comfortable with it. A Maplewood sign ordinance allows sports facility signs with a comprehensive sign plan, which are reviewed by the Design Review Board, which is occurring tonight. The city's sign ordinance allows park identification, and so this is some context. The city's sign ordinance allows park identification signs to be up to 6 feet in height. So there is a Afton Park sign that's kind of tucked away on the site currently. Any of the city's parks would be able to implement or install a sign 6 feet in height. So the proposed rugby sign is approximately double the height of that sign that the city itself would be allowed to construct in the park. Comprehensive sign plans do allow the CDRB to consider flexibility from ordinance requirements. In reviewing this request, park engineering and planning staff are more comfortable with having the applicant's proposed sign be scaled down to not exceed 8 feet in height. Obviously would like the CDRB to weigh in and guide that approval process. But that's about a third reduction, and we do intend for that, yes, the height, but also then the width would come in with it, so it would be proportional decrease from the almost 12 down to 8 feet maximum. So that's something that we ask the board then to consider as they look at approval. So with that, the applicant is present. I believe there is a resident here from the adjacent neighborhood. Staff is recommending approval of the comprehensive sign plan with the condition of reducing that sign to a maximum of 8 feet. So staff can stand for any questions that the commission may have at this time.
Question from the commission?
No, I don't have any questions for staff. I would like to hear from the applicant why they wanted this thing to be so tall in the first place.
I would definitely like to come up and speak. Good. Sign in and state your name, please.
Kevin White, and I am the president of the St. Paul Rugby Club. And that's a great question. So I went through the ordinance, saw it was out there. If you look where the pitch is, there's actually 2 entrances. And if you Google where the St. Paul Rugby pitch is, it actually puts you on the back end. I don't know if you can see on the map there, over by where the warming house is to the north. Unfortunately, so when we have other teams come, that's where it sends them. And so the neighbors have been very vocal about the fact of, hey, when you have these games, you bring people here, they don't know your pitch is on this side, where the Upper Afton entrance is. If you're driving by that entrance, even though the speed limit's 30, you can miss it very quickly. So to that end, since we're not just even on the street front to it, we're inset from there by a bit. My goal was to raise something that was bigger. Understand all your concerns. That's why I ran it by everybody. It was kind of see if we can get it there so that we can really show that. As we bring it in smaller, it makes it harder and harder to read, even further set back from the road. So that was our main concern about that. Getting down further to the road's not possible. There's a sewer drain there when I was with engineering. So that spot, if you want to get closer to the road with a smaller sign, isn't really feasible. So we did the opposite of going back further from the road and seeing if we could go bigger. So that was kind of the thought process behind it.
Is this a two-sided sign? I mean,
No, it'll be a one-sided sign.
So how do you plan to treat the north side of the sign?
It'll be black.
That would just face the interior of whatever's going on. It would just be black, right? The interior part.
Correct, yep. So it's, if you looked at right now, what's there is the fence sign, so the park rules, that is on the chain link fence. So talk to parks, they would be fine moving that over, because that would then be blocked from that view. They had no issues with that, moving that down two posts kind of. So it would block that area that right now is where those signs are. But yeah, the backside would be black.
So if I understand this correctly, so the main reason for the height of the sign is to direct people to the proper entrance?
Absolutely, and so to make it visible from the street, the problem is if you look at with like they brought up the Afton Park sign original, which we were trying to figure out what was there. First of all, it's probably grandfathered in because there's now gas lines there, so that's way off limits. But it's really under the tree there on that fence line, so it's hard to tell if that's where it is. Again, our goal is hopefully to make it recognizable enough that we can point people to this as an access point. And make it an easier entrance. Again, unfortunately, when we don't do that and when we don't communicate it as well, people either drive by it or they do the Google Maps, which then takes them to the back end. We tried labeling the pitch on Google Maps, so we're really working hard because I know it's got to be a pain when people start parking in that back street there and get packed in when there's a rugby game, when there's all that parking right along the pitch that is great there. So that was the idea of kind of supersizing it. Understand, again, with your guys' recommendation and working with engineering, what size you guys want. We really are looking to just kind of put some posts in the ground here to show we're at the pitch, so.
So is your concern Upper Afton Road, the people coming there not being able to identify the pitch?
Yes, absolutely. If you look at the gap as you're driving through, and if you flip through, I don't know if you have that Google Maps view I put in there. It kind of gives you, I think it's in the package. If you look in the package, the agenda, you can kind of see I did a picture, right, with the application. I don't know.
We can put it on the overhead.
Okay.
And Chair and Board, it's on page 54, the second to last page of your.
Sorry, excuse me.
And then if we could have the overhead camera. Oh, this always screws me up.
I see.
Right, so you can kind of see that the gap in that, from where the houses are to where that tree line is a pretty quick snap, right? So if you're driving up the hill and you're not looking exactly to your left when you hit that, it's very easy to pass that. Little harder when you're coming south on Upper Afton, but still a small gap. So that was the reason for that, to really get that up there. So you can kind of see I roughly spotted it in there further back from the road, and you can see there's that spot to the left, right, where the entrance is. That's where the rain sewer pipe collection is. So you can't put anything on there. So to stay away from any power lines, and if you look at the right, there's actually markings for the gas lines that are running through there. And then in that spot, if you guys are familiar with it, is where the overhead lines run as well. So we've got electrical lines there. So we're staying as hugged close to that line of utilities without getting into anything else.
So is the height to clear the trees?
No, the height's just to put it up so it's more visible, right? Because so I did, for park signs, the monument signs for the height, right, which is the 8 feet, right, would put it, so if we wanted it big enough you could see it visually from the street, right, then it would still need to be a pretty large, because I think it's allowed, was it 80-something odd inches of surface area for the sign? I'd have to go back and what the requirement is. But we'd be trying to maximize that as much as possible if height was not the issue, right? So I know you guys talked about scaling it down, but if we could do something different, which is keep the frontage as much as possible, and we'll sink it to the ground, right? So instead of being up on the posts, it'll be a ½ inch off the ground, right? Because I think the height right now from bottom of the sign to top is 7.5 feet. So we could then move to a ½ inch post for leveling and drop it down. That way it's only at the highest 8 foot from the ground. That's what we would hope to do, to keep the face front as much as possible. That's our biggest, is to catch the eye as that's going. If the height's the issue, we have no problem chopping the legs off and doing that.
Just to clarify, that 8 feet then would be ground level to aircraft, okay.
Yep.
Okay, and you can live with the 8 feet if it's.
Again, we're looking to work with you guys, right? So if you guys, well, I'm not going to fight you guys on
Well,
it.
it's-
Really, I appreciate working on this, and again, the fact that the engineering team has gone and walked it down with me, and we wanted to make sure everything with the other part for us, we want to make sure is that it's easy for the grounds crews, because we've been working really closely with them. Anything we put in there isn't a pain for them to have to upkeep. So that was our only other concern. We weren't aware with signs, right? We haven't done a sign as a team with potential graffiti, right, was another concern of ours, things getting tagged. So if you keep it at ground level, you're more likely to have that occur. You raise it up, you minimize that. A lot of our stuff for the AA or the screws that are the inaccessible, all of it was meant for security, assuming this is a sign we're going to be upkeeping. So therefore, how would we keep this the most safe? And ground level was not our first recommendation, right? So we went for, hey, if we could raise it up, makes it a little hard to get to, makes it a little less somebody to mess with it. But again, we can work at 8 feet.
It's been an extensive sign program the last couple of years that everyone's worked on, so to drive that feed and that it's agreeable, that you know,
Perfect.
that's a good thing.
Okay, cool.
I have another question. Do you guys have any kind of signage on the side that you don't want people to go to, directing them to?
We don't. That can be a future thing we can do. We've been trying mainly just through word of mouth, and when we're telling other clubs where to come, how to get to our pitch. The problem is everybody's got Google Maps now, so when you
Right.
go and find our pitch, it sends you right to there. So there's something I'm not sure how we change that.
Well, I guess my thought is just that it wouldn't really change them going to the wrong entrance, but it would at least direct them to.
And that's absolutely, if that's something that the city's looking for us to do, we can put that in our capital plan of something to look at.
Chair
for
and
that.
commission, or chair and board, one thing that's not necessarily in the realm of what the CDRB usually looks at, but just hearing the issue that the club is having going to the different entrance, I think the city staff would be able to work with the applicant to assign a specific address to the Upper Afton Road that would be for that, like a secondary address that would be in the system officially, and that would eventually get through the navigation systems like Google Maps, and that would help. Then the club could put that as that's their address.
That would be
And
fantastic.
direct to people. So if we wanted to add that to a condition, just so that everyone's clear on expectations, but I'm confident that the city can help, can resolve that issue.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for the support on that. That if we can do it digitally, that's the easiest way. That really is. And that'll help also with the sign, because now it'll be a double of, we put it in the system and the sign's now there. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Have you guys had a chance to come out and watch a game yet?
No, we'll.
Oh, I
plan
hope you
to.
guys make it out. We invited everyone out for the pig roast. We had our women's team start. It was amazing. We had a big celebration. Hope you guys make it out sometime.
How long does your season go till?
We have a fall season, we have a spring season. So fall season just ended last week, and fortunately for me, I'm still playing, so.
I love the
Any-
name.
What's that?
I love the name.
Thank you, I appreciate it. It's been an old nickname for a long time. Anything else?
Thank
So
you.
are those the two conditions I get, no, they did make the motion on those?
Well, chair and board, they'll continue to discuss. I do know I believe there's a resident from the neighborhood that if you want to.
No, I wasn't,
allow the-
next, yep. If anyone from the public wants to come up and speak, please state your name and sign in.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Alan Singer. I've been a resident of 49 O'Day Street for 34 years. That's one block over from the park to the east. And I have probably walked Afton Park or ran it 3 or 4 times a week in 34 years. So I'm very familiar with the park. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but that was once owned by Ramsey County. Ramsey County did a land transfer. And then the park was redesigned because the main entrance was that northeast, and so all the traffic was routed on O'Day Street, and so that has really changed very well, and so we appreciate that. And I certainly understand the rugby club because I get to listen to the crowds on the weekends, and it's great that they're there. I also recognize that it's important for the city to be able to get revenue and to offset their operations as well. There's kind of a related concern that I have, though, is that over time, what has happened is Afton Park has become privatized. Right now, the public cannot get into any of the ball fields. They're all locked. There were signs on the rugby field last year that said this field cannot be used except for rugby. And I think the sign is in a direction toward that same thing, and I'm really concerned in terms of the message a sign is sending, saying this is the home of the Jazz Pigs. And so I'm concerned about sort of the status of the lease and privatization of parks. I used to work for the Minneapolis Park System. I worked for Dakota County. It's a tough issue, trying to balance all of these things. But I think foremost, this is a public park. And right now, the majority of the park is not available to the public because you have to belong to the baseball club or the league or whatever to use the ball fields. And I'm concerned because right now there's a new sign on the fence saying use of the field is by permit only. And so that's my major concern. I realize that that's not under your purview, but the sign does have an impact to that perception and to that use. You mentioned a little bit about the location. Although the speed limit is 30 miles per hour, people don't drive 30 miles an hour there. They go zipping by. And so I don't think that that is really going to solve the problem in terms of if people can see it or not see it. Also, I think what's going to happen is, as designed in the location right now, it is covering up all of the other signs. And so to me, the most elegant solution, if you're going to go with a sign, is to have a unified sign that's adhered to the fence that says Afton Park, home of the Jazz Pigs, and then leave space for the sponsorships. That way you can make it look like this is all sort of unified instead of a separate sign that says by permit use only, another one that says no motorized vehicles, another one that says the park name, another one that says park rules, and another one that says this park receives state funds. And then you have this big sign that doesn't have any cohesiveness with any of the other signs as a separate thing that covers everything up. I think that's sending the wrong message that this is not a city park. I'm all for rugby, but I just don't think that this sign is the answer to the question. And so I'd ask you to reconsider the location, the type of sign, and also this whole issue about privatization of the park and what the sign represents. And with that, I would take any questions or comments.
I'll ask a couple questions. One, is there any plan right now? Is the park is going to be changed from public to private? I know that's probably not the trivial view of where we're at right now, but
Yeah, Chair and Board, there's the park itself would not become a private. The city will continue to own it and maintain it. I know the signs that Mr. Singer is referencing, that for the rugby pitch, that it's done by permit only. There's other facilities in the city as well that operate in a similar fashion. I don't know too much more beyond that as far as park functions. Is in terms of what facilities get deemed that versus other ones. You can tell just from the aerial, those are well-maintained fields, and I'm guessing that, again, I don't know anything about the baseball side of it, but I'm guessing that the parks works with entities that use those on a regular basis.
let me ask a couple questions. Have you found challenging just to use the park for just walking through it or for enjoying it? Has that been a challenge?
Not for walking through, but I question, there's a group of Southeast Asian men that put up a volleyball net on the southwest corner of the rugby field when it's not being used or practiced. Literal interpretation of the new permit sign that says you can't use this field unless you have a permit. People use it for disc golf, they use it for running their dogs, they use it for pickup games. That sign says you can't use this field unless you have a permit.
What would happen if that sign was removed?
So, Chair and Board, I think these are obviously very valid questions and concerns. I think, I can ask that the Park and Rec staff be directed to watching this conversation and ask them to respond back to Mr. Singer directly, and if appropriate, bring it up in front of the Parks and Recs Commission for a future discussion on the use of this park and other parks that are in similar situations. As the resident mentioned, your purview is the sign and that request tonight. And that's where you can really go with it. But I do think the valid concerns or comments that are brought up can be redirected down the appropriate channel.
Let me ask one. Have you talked to the Parks and Rec Board about this?
No,
Okay.
I haven't.
Okay, that might be the best avenue to this discussion.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do that. And back in the 90s, I was part of the organizing group that led to the open space referendum in the city. And so I'm familiar, I know a number of the people, and, frankly, I wasn't aware that the lease was being signed, that, starts, again, it's just nibbling at this whole idea of what is public park use and who gets to decide that, and what are the terms of the lease. But the sign is what really sort of brought that to the fore in terms of this perception. And I think if you could create that new address and put it into Google Maps, that would solve that issue in terms of making sure that people know where the rugby field is so that they can park in the appropriate places.
In what I can speak to for own personal experience, by Hazelwood Park where I live, I've seen the sign, permitted use only. It's been off, it's been on. It has not had any effect on people using the park at all. So I walk through it all the time. So I would hope that you would go back to Parks and Rec Commission, and then, that they would also listen to this conversation here.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, board? Questions for applicant or for staff? No. Anyone willing to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the staff recommendations on the sign for the rugby park, reducing the height to 8 feet. But the one thing that I'm torn with is, do we need to also make sure that the width also, I'm okay with just reducing the height, but leaving the width alone. But I'm open to the other commissioners' view on that point.
I agree with that. That's fine.
So there's a motion on the floor.
Oh, I'll second it then.
And just, so on page 49 of the staff, of the packet, there's recommended action, conditions 1 through 5. And then condition 4 does talk about the applicant has allowed one 8-foot tall freestanding sign as part of the approval. And as what we're hearing in the discussion tonight, the width can stay the same.
And I'll make an amendment just to address what we talked about tonight, that the staff will work with the applicant to work on making the digital address correct to at least get the process started. So I'll make the motion. So motion to approve the comprehensive sign plan for St. Paul Rugby Club at 63 Sterling Street North, subject to conditions of approval 1 through 5, with the addition that the applicant work with the city staff on making the correct address digitally to reduce challenge and other issues.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. We'll call the request to order. Board Member Shankar.
Aye.
Board Member Reinert.
Aye.
Board Member Kempe.
Aye.
Board Member Osman.
Aye.
That's all. And this is a design review level only, so this item does not require city council review.
Motion approved. Any unfinished business?
Chair and board staff does not have any additional business for you tonight.
Board presentations? Staff presentations?
Nothing further for you tonight, Chair?
No other visitor presentations? Okay. I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
All those should we do a roll call for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Board Member Shankar,
I agree.
Board Member Reinert,
Aye.
Board Member Kempe,
Aye, indeed.
and Board Member Osman.
Aye.
So we are adjourned at 6:49.